around for a while. And recently there was a court case out of Australia that I put into the EMDR News site on various things, and birth trauma was one of the things that we have information on. All right, everybody. Hope you are okay. Hope everybody is doing well out there. Dr. Tim Vermillion again from EMDR News, and I come 9:30 each morning that I can to come and talk to you about all the wonderful things that are happening in the world, and how we can help with mental health and especially EMDR. Do talk a lot about veterans as well. Fridays we do have a Remember Everyone Deployed or Red Day, right? Red Friday. So on Fridays we try to wear red in order to promote that Remember Everyone Deployed. All right. So, yeah, without further ado, let's get started today. Okay. So it's August. Welcome to August, everybody. I don't know if what you do on August 1st or on the 1st of any month, but sometimes they rabbit. I don't know why, but we're 2 days out, August 3rd, and this is my birthday month. So happy birthday to me. So sometime in this month, I'll be turning older. It doesn't stop; it just keeps happening every year. So we are going to also have the conference this in a couple weeks. It's very exciting. I'm looking forward to it. I got all my flight itinerary, all that done. Got my hotel room set, and getting ready. Excited about it. Then we have our next month again. We have our STSS, the other conference down in San Antonio, and again I'll be there for that. And I am excited about that one as well. I won't be at the EMDR Humanitarian Assistance Program conference in South Carolina at the beginning of October because I have some other obligations that I got to attend to. But those are the current conferences that are out there, and I'm hoping that you'll all take advantage of all the conferences that are out there so that we can bring new information into the fold, right? A closed system isn't always great. We get stuck when we don't have the support we need from other people, and we get stuck in our own ways of thinking if we don't open our mind to new information. And some of the people that might come in and watch some of the videos that I have, read some of the things that I write, they might be like, hey, this person is very closed-minded, right? I think I'm just the opposite. Like I like to read all the research. I like to read the articles and stuff. I don't even think most people do of that. They might read a good book every once in a while, but the thing about books is, they tend to be written over a long period of time, and some of the information that's in them, the information has moved, right? So books are great still. I'm just, not knocking that, but the research thing is where things are happening, right? And then the research becomes books. So, keeping up on the research is important to me. And when we go away from the research, it has to be a pretty good reason. And even if it is like, hey, I know this works, I want to explore it, that's a fantastic reason, right? But when we say, I have this new shiny coin, whatever point oh or whatever it wants to be, we have to be careful, right? Because we want to make sure first that the research follows with what's happening. And generally, we do find that. We do find that uh, there's some benefit to some of the things that we do. It's weird because you'll even find things. I think acupuncture cupping, right? When you get into the science and the research of it, people are like, "Oh, well, it works for me." But then if they get it, they're given a piece of paper and stuff like that, and they're supposed to write down how it works for them, they're not sure, right? It comes like a placebo effect or something like that, and it ends up that a lot of this stuff isn't necessarily backed by as much research as you would think. I have, my significant other always comes up to me, not knocking my significant other. I love you. Um, but, basically, here's the phone, right? And here's the newest thing that they're saying about health, about, get this tool or, whatever it might be. And I'm like, I don't believe anything that comes up on the internet, um, which is unfortunate. I just there's a face thing that I bought because I'm trying to get in front of the computer more, and I want to not look like I got roses and all sorts of stuff going on. Um, but the point is that trying to figure out what to put on your face in order to look better on camera, right? And so you look online, you're like, here, buy this, your marketed stuff, and then when you get it, if you look at the stuff, they're like, yeah, this isn't sold in Europe. This chemical is not great for you, right? So the research is out on half the stuff in here. So, like, okay, what am I putting on my face? And so, you have all those weird things going on right now with looks maxing with the younger crowd and mogging and all of that. So, you got to be careful with what you're doing, uh, people like hitting themselves and, because if you want like your cheekbones to look good, you could get filler, or you can smack yourself. And some of these kids are smacking themselves with like hammers and stuff in order to try and get their cheekbones to swell. I know, but this is the world we live in, right? We got kids looks maxing and mogging other kids. And when I say kids, I mean 20s too as well. So I don't know if it gets beyond the 20s, but who knows? Okay, so sorry about that. Little rabbit hole. Um, so there's a lot of good things that are still happening out there. There's some more information on psychedelics recently in the news, and working with veterans, especially with the psychedelics. I don't know if you know of a ganglion block, right? That's another thing that's happening. It's been going on. You can actually get it through the VA, not everywhere, but they should be able to figure out where you can get it. And that kind of blocks like some of those fear signals that come with some of the memories, and that kind of changes your experience of the memory. And when you can change the experience of the memory, it reconsolidates, I guess, or when you store it again, it's not stored with the same material. It doesn't fire the same way. And that's one of the biggest things that, at least in the concept of AIP, the adaptive information processing model. Um, when we look at the model, right, that's one of the biggest things that we explore there is that the AIP model posits that these issues that we have, the pathology of today, the difficulties that we're having with our families, friends, and at work, are all because of maladaptively stored memories, right? Memories that are stored in isolation from other adaptive memories, other experiences overcome, other positive qualities that you've demonstrated in your life, bravery, courage, resiliency, etc. Right? So something happens and it's uncomfortable and you don't like it, and you do what you have to do to deal with it, and at some point you get really good at it, dealing with it, and not dealing with it by not dealing with it, right? You shove it to the recesses of your mind. um, so again, fantastic, right? It's not bothering you anymore, and what more do we have to worry about? Well, what we have to worry about is that it's insidious and it starts to affect you in different ways. When you get triggered, you might react more than you should in a given situation, right? That anger is not commensurate with the issue that happened, for example. An exaggerated startle response, right? Um, Again, those are from the PTSD checklist, the exaggerated startle response. Also, hypervigilance, right? It's on the PCL checklist. All of these things might be triggered because we're innervating or having an issue with um, a memory that was stored in a certain way. So with working with psychedelics, with those ganglion blockers and all these things, we can still see actually how they fit into a AIP model when we say, okay, well, we're changing the experience of that they're having when they bring up this memory, and then changing that experience when that memory is stored. It's got to fire differently. Remember what fires together wires together, right? So that's firing with some other new information, and that new information can have a profound effect on the old information once it's stored. Pretty nifty, I think, anyway. Give me 1 second. I'm just checking to see. There was a comment that I saw pop up. Okay. Okay, cool. Bum, bum, bum. Um, take a quick look at other areas for comments here. Going all the way up here. Hey, interesting. Bum, bum, bum. Okay. I digress. So the thing that we can look at today, and we can bring what we were just talking about into it, but the thing we were just talking about today is the idea that, or working on addiction and compulsions. So we have a couple that people know about, right? AJ Popke's Detour. We have Cravex, Michael, I forget his last name right now. Cravex. There's a couple more, right? And my favorite that I always put out there, the Feeling State Protocol by Miller. So we have a lot of things out there that we can use to try and head off some of the different symptoms and experiences that people are dealing with when they are combining substance use, maybe with their trauma. There is the argument out there that you don't need to be have trauma in order to be addicted to substances or have compulsions, which is completely true. But it is a factor, right? So we don't want to discount the factor that there is a large part that trauma plays in to many people, and I would say a lot of people that have drug or alcohol issues. And if it's not what brought them to drug and alcohol, like a trauma made them want to escape or something, once they're doing the drug, alcohol behavior, they put themselves at risk of finding themselves in bad situations, whether that's in relationships, whether that's with the law, um, with work, etc. So if you're drinking on the job and you get fired, there might be a bunch of issues that cascade from there that could be a little T traumatic, or maybe even big T traumatic. DUIs. I mean, you have a DUI, that is a big issue, because you might have hurt somebody, you might have hurt yourself. And there's a financial thing, there's a embarrassment thing sometimes, all right, and then there's a court thing, and there's a bunch of layers that you can eventually have some little T's kind of layer on top of each other. So it might not be that you have this issue where your childhood trauma is driving you to drink or driving you to have some compulsion or something like that. It's fine. However, we do need to recognize that the other part is true too. That when you are having these issues, they can demonstrate the need, or they can lead to more of these little T's, little traumas or big traumas. So there's a lot of room to work with EMDR with all of these things. Um, we're going to be talking about healthcare at some point, I think this week as well, chronic pain and stuff. And that also has a similar way of looking at it. You don't need to have had childhood trauma to have trauma within your illness. Bipolar, for example, has a lot of some of the same issues that a substance abuse or a addiction to a behavior might have, right? Because they end up getting in trouble. They end up having relationship issues just by nature of the symptoms of bipolar illness. So, just an example there. Uh, so, we don't necessarily need to have trauma in order to deal with or have our work be tied into addictions and compulsions, but it's often there. So whenever we do any work, we really do want to get a good map, right? So when I am working with uh, people that are consultants and whatnot, they come to me, they're like, hey, I have a shortened treatment episode. I'm only allowed to see people for 12, 15, 20 sessions or so, right? And I have somebody coming in that's, you name it, a very complex client, also with drug or alcohol addictions, et cetera. How am I doing this within the context of this short amount of time? It's a good question, right? And a lot of people are like, well, just get there first or worst, just get, these, that, or the other thing, right? I don't agree with that. I want the full map, right? We might not go through the full map and deal with all of the memories within the map, but I want the full target identification worksheet, everything that you can find within that context of that problem and that memory network. I want to kind of map it out and understand where everything is. Because if we are dealing with a memory that because we decided for clinical appropriate reasons to start at a present trigger or something else, another, bad memory that's not the touchstone or something. If we decided to work there and blocking beliefs come up or feeder memories come up, if I didn't do that map, I might not have an idea of what is happening here. So I encourage you to please do the full map so you know what the lay of the land looks like. So when you start working with the client, you'll be better able to navigate. All right. So that's important, right? So you still want to see if there's childhood stuff, even though they say, hey, my trauma is a car accident or something like that. Fantastic, right? I understand that, but I just want to see the context of how that car accident is held within your mind and your mental map, so to speak. So with addictions, it's the same thing, right? We do the whole mental map. We find out everything as far back as we can until present day, all those things that affected them negatively that might be pertaining to the work that we're doing to get them to the goal they want to go get to, right? So sometimes for people that only have a treatment episode, a short treatment episode to work with a client, the treatment plan is the biggest thing that we need to kind of look at because the treatment plan is going to tell us what we expect to get done in that amount of time. That might not be saving the world. That may not be everything the client needs or wants, right? However, we can look at what's happening today. We can look at, okay, what is the what can we do feasibly within the context of the time that we have in order to get them where they as close to the goal as possible or to meet that goal. And we can define that goal specifically based on the treatment plan. Like, hey, I would love to help you, change your entire childhood, how you see your entire childhood. However, within the context of the time that we have, I think that we could probably look at something that's bothering you right now that's helping or harming your ability to get through your day to day and interact with people on an appropriate level, right? So you can change your treatment plan, and that's one of the biggest pieces of identifying how we're going to work with this client and work through this process. Um, so uh, the little I'm a standard protocol person, and I want to put it out there that I would prefer not to call it the standard protocol anymore. So please, we're gonna do away with standard protocol, right? And we're just gonna call it the research protocol, right? The EMDR research protocol, right? That because the standard protocol is standard because it's the one that was researched. People say it's standard. If the standard protocol isn't working for you, then X. That's not a good way to say it, right? If the research protocol isn't working for you, then X, right? Okay, well that's an important change in feeling almost, So we're moving away from the research protocol. As you say, if you say it that way and kind of understand it and frame it that way, right? Okay, well, it's not working for me, I would say, okay, well, let's go get some consultation to figure out how we can get back in the context of the research protocol, right? So we do have tools, and I'm all for the tools, but just in the context of understanding how we are communicating about EMDR, it seems like when we use the word standard protocol, it's almost diminishing the fact that this is a well-researched protocol, and it doesn't include a lot of the bells and whistles that people sprinkle on it right now. So the research protocol, right? If we're moving away from it, then we're moving away from the research. Okay. Um, True story. All right. So with the alcohol and with the addiction piece, what we've discussed so far is that addiction isn't necessarily a trauma-based issue, right, or a trauma originating issue. However, within the context of the addiction, one may eventually develop trauma-based issues. Okay, and those are important, and those are things that we kind of have to look at and explore. So, looking to see some of the comments on here. So as far as Detour goes, AJ Popke did that, and AJ Popke was with Francine for a long time. They had a good relationship, my understanding, and he's passed away, unfortunately. A couple of years ago, can't remember exactly when, but he passed away, and let's see, it's a his detour protocol has stuck around, and it's really helpful in terms of reducing the urges of alcohol or compulsions. It's not a long protocol; it's a short one, and it can really help people come down from those urges and whatnot. We have the CraveX, which, as it sounds, also helps with the craving aspect of things. The Miller's feeling state protocol, though, is my favorite, and I've used it multiple times for substance issues and for behavioral issues, right? So I keep putting that one out there. And with that one, there is some research out there that it works. It's very limited in terms of how much research. So I would always advise people to. I'm not a researcher myself. Generally, I'm a practitioner scholar. I talk about the research, talk about what's missing in it, and hopefully by doing the work that I do as a practitioner scholar, that stuff can get up to people that want to research my concerns. That's kind of the way that works. I can do case studies. Again, anecdotal evidence, case studies, all important in the whole process of things. So with Miller's thing, we are actually able to bring down the positive aspect of things. The good feeling, the euphoria almost that comes from the chemical or the behavior. We can bring some of that down. And I say chemical, and that's true, right? When you think about chronic pain, we can tie that in here, right? What is chronic pain? You have acute pain, which is the tissue pain, right? The actual pain from the physical issue, injury, or illness, maybe the neuropathic pain, whatever, but the physical issues. And then you have the chronic pain, right? The layer that it includes the thoughts about not being able to do X, Y, or Z anymore, right? Your lack of mobility, your difficulties in maintaining your relationships, etc. Right? That layer adds to the pain, acute pain, to make the pain experience worse. So when we think about the other thing, what we're talking about now, it can be some of the same ideas with addiction or compulsions, right? The chemical feeling is positive, but the ideas and thoughts and feelings wrapped up in that positive feeling can make it even feel better or necessary. And that's one of the big things that come with the Miller's protocol, right? Is that there's a survival piece that comes to it, and that's so you're like a positive cognition, almost like um, uh, something that you actually need in order to survive, to move forward, assured survival thought or something like that. Sorry, Miller, you can get your verbology, your verbal jargon incorrect at the moment, but it's interesting, right? And those things are like, I have to be loved, or I think in the book it's gambling. And it's like, I'm the man, right? Or no, that was I think it was both, actually. I'm the man was the gambling piece, and I think I'm the man was also the womanizing piece, not promoting womanizing. Again, this is talking about pathology. So, but in any case, somebody that was having serial monogamy, or going out with multiple people, and he would have uh, score, I don't know, a sexual relationship with that person, and then he would ghost them. And one of the things with this case is that the idea was that the case, um, uh, that piece of having sex with the female is what gave them gave him that positive feeling, right? It wasn't anything else really. It's that like I'm the man, like I'm better than everybody because I can do this, and so that is tied to this thing. And so if we can detach that piece, I'm the man, from the other piece of actually doing the event or situation, then all of a sudden it doesn't include it. So if you're going to have sex with some other female, and you're not getting this feeling, this assured thought that I am the man, right? Then um, you might not be likely to keep doing it, right? So you detach a couple things. You detach the positive euphoric feeling, and then you detach that thought from the actual process of whatever's happening, whether it's the chemical addiction or the compulsion. And I usually, when I'm talking about cigarettes, and I do very often talk about tobacco and nicotine, right? Because I'm very, it's one of my pet peeves that we don't pay enough attention to the fact that combustible cigarettes do so much harm to our country in terms of how many people die each year, or how many people even get sick and don't die. I mean, it's crazy. And we don't pay as much attention to that, than we do like heroin or other like harder drugs, that don't kill as many people in the end. It's just like nefarious. It doesn't get as many people sick. Yes, it's horrible. Not like discounting how horrible it is, but at the same time, um, yeah. But at the same time, um, that's the difficulty there, right? Is that the 488,000 people, is just crazy. Sorry, I was got my computer had a burp. So let's continue. So yeah, we can do it smoking, and not Richard Miller. Well, I'll just say Miller. Miller Protocol did a research on cigarettes and tobacco and found that he was able to use the feeling state protocol in order to bring down the tobacco use. And it was better than cognitive behavioral therapy at the time. There's only one study; it was limited, so how generalizable that is important to bring up, right? It's like okay, study, it's research. It says, hey, it works, but it might not be as generalizable. We need more research, as usual. Right? We always need more. We always need. You can prove people wrong too. So you do research to show there's more evidence of this, but also, hey, there might be something else going on here. So we have the situation where we don't need to have trauma to necessarily get into an addiction. We don't need, we can have the trauma come with the addiction and kind of grow as we participate in the addiction. So when we look at these things, we can recognize, okay, so trauma can happen and people can be traumatized multiple different ways in multiple different situations, and it can all have an impact on how they're reacting to it through using substances or having compulsive or impulsive behaviors. I was trying to use the correct language. I think that we don't have sex addiction, right? We have an impulse control disorder. Right? I don't think sex addiction is in the DSM at the moment. So keep that in mind. So we can help people detach their urge, detach their craving, and again, this other piece, right, that feeling state, right, where we can take the idea, like, when did you start smoking? You're like, oh, well, when when I saw other people smoking, and so I went and wanted to be part of the crowd in some way, and was smoking with them. Okay, and that smoking that cigarette becomes something like I'm not alone, right? I belong, right? That positive feeling that comes along with it, and we can detach that positive feeling, so the cigarette no longer means that. Right. So when I get a cigarette, it's not because I'm feeling lonely in the moment, or that positive feeling of belongingness kind of soothes whatever ailment that you're having in the moment. Okay, so that's the Miller piece there. So we can get through that aspect of things. We also, when we're doing addictions, often do our future, like a RDI almost for future. First before we do anything as a resource for them, right? We want a imagine a sober or I don't know what's happening here. Can you hear me still? Yep. Okay. You can imagine a sober or impulse free, compulsive free situation in the future. So they imagine what that would look like, the life, and you can build that in as a resource. So we often do that as well when we're working with an addiction person as one of the first things that we work on. And then we continue to move forward in terms of the whole process and the whole protocol. He has an interesting image image transformation therapy as well, and some of that is incorporated into the uh, feeling state protocol. And that's one of the ways on some level how the euphoric feeling that you get from a drug or something like that. There's a piece of that within the context of that other therapy and within this therapy that helps you change how you actually physically feel with some of this stuff that happens with the addiction or compulsion. Pretty interesting. Okay, so and there's not many questions that I got this time around with for the addiction, and it's surprising because there's so many that are there. So if you have addiction questions, please reach out to me that you want to talk about specifically on here. They are a scourge, if you will. They're a thing that people have within their own families. If it's not for them, it's somebody they know, right? So it affects their lives in different ways, and we can explore that in different ways as well. People growing up with a drug abusing alcoholic or impulsive parent. That's an example. What would that be like? I'm just kind of dealing with how people deal with substance abuses in different contexts as well. Okay, so I'm gonna bring this addiction stuff up every once in a while. Like it'll probably like a segment or something, that happens once every couple of weeks. So based on the questions that I'm gonna get, and I'm also gonna go and look through and find some social discussions related to these things as well, so that I can just bring them here. There are questions out there, might not have been directed here, but I can still speak to them, right? I always bring up the parts work piece. There's people ask a question on Facebook or on some other platforms, and again, instead of using the standard protocol, right, aka the research protocol, they jump to using all other aspects that are great, fantastic tools, but are they necessary? And there's not as much research that holds them up, or there's no research at all. So we know that EMDR works. We just got to use it correctly, or get some good consultation to find out how to use the research protocol to get to where we need to go. I'm not discounting parts work or anything like that. I just am a proponent to say that EMDR is well researched and can do the job. Generally, there might be some times where it doesn't work that well for some complex cases, and we can try to figure out what are the limits, right, and go for there. I don't even think we have research on what the limits are. Like, oh, there's a complex case. Why isn't EMDR working for this? And I don't think we have enough research on that. So there's a lot of opportunities to kind of prove, hey, research protocol doesn't work for this, right? And kind of go and move forward with that. So I challenge you as you move forward to use research protocol instead of standard protocol. I challenge you to explore the plethora of EMDR turns that we can use when we are stuck with a simple, like a quote unquote simple client and a complex client, right? Um, EMDR works. There's a lot of research on it. There's more research generally than EMDR 2.0. Um, all this other stuff, right? So flash technique, there's more research on EMDR. So when we are switching and looking and thinking and all of that, we have tools. We want to integrate them. It's an integrative therapy. That's all fantastic. However, we do want to make sure that we are not drifting and making it something that it's not, or something that we would rather have it be, or using tools that are not necessary. Tomorrow, let me go ahead and take a look and see what we are supposed to be working on then. Oh, and if you don't know, you can reach out uh, on There we go. You can go ahead and look on the what is this thing called? On the QR code that you might see there, and that QR code might be helpful in terms of getting in contact with me if you want to ask those questions or anything like that. Let's go ahead and take a look at the stuff we're doing this week. I know it probably says next week still, but this is what we're doing this week. So we can take a look at what that's about. And let's just pop out of here for right now. All right. So we have today was just kind of talking about substance abuse mostly. Kind of left out the PTSD piece, but stuck with the addiction piece. Kind of explored that, that we don't necessarily need to have PTSD from childhood in order to get there. And one of the things about the PTSD piece is that that is a push, right? So when people are doing some type of substance or doing a behavior that it helps them, right? That's their push, the reason why they do it. The pull is that positive feeling, the assured survival feeling, right? Again, I belong, I'm safe, I'm the man, whatever that means, etc. So and I'm the man is because I say that because of the actual book. I believe that's what the case study was looking at was one person that had a lot of sexual encounters, and that was his thought. And they were comparing it to somebody that had the same similar thought, "I am the man," but it was wrapped up in a behavioral gambling addiction instead. So tomorrow we should be talking about treating depression and suicide. And let me tell you, I love depression. Treating it with when it works, it works fantastically. Treating depression with the DPRN protocol, and just kind of exploring depression and moving forward with that. We'll also be talking about suicidal ideation with EMDR, and there's a lot of information about suicide coming up recently, especially within the veteran community. There's been more people that are coming up with suicidal, um, let's see, complaining about suicide within the VA in this decade than last, right? Within the last 2 weeks of their surveys. It went from 9% to 13%. So it's going up, which is but might be actually just about more people willing to report it, but it could also be a concerning thing as well. So it really depends on how you want to look at this and explain the statistics. And suicidal is something that people are afraid of. It's like, when do we start therapy if somebody is chronically suicidal? Is it acute suicide? Is it chronic? But is it low, mild, severe? Etc. So it's an important thing to look at. I briefly touched on chronic pain today in respect to kind of appreciating how people can experience a more positive euphoria or a more positive uh, high because of the way that memories are wrapped around some of these things. So the chronic pain, again, is how you can experience a worse pain or worse experience of pain because of the memories and the issues wrapped around that, like loss of roles. I can't do this anymore. I once had a client that was into biking, got hit by a car and couldn't bike as much anymore because of some, PTSD and stuff, but also because of how damaged he became. He couldn't do other things that he wanted to do as well with friends. So he would lose out on a social group and lose out on the activities that they still did, but he couldn't participate in. So you'd have to watch, and then he just felt weird about watching, and then he just kind of backed out. We have some body dysmorphia stuff coming up for you, and then red. I have military sexual trauma still up there. Depending on how much time we have, we might still go into that, but we do have a guest. So that guest is going to be talking about veterans and housing on Remember Everyone Deployed Day. Awesome sauce. Okay, so that looks good up there. And let me go ahead and pull that back down. All right. So yeah, I'm gonna definitely be bringing you the questions from the world out there as well, and I'm gonna try and keep the part. Everyone's jumping to parts work, so if you want, you know, you can always go and you'll get the parts work answer within the context of those things. So if you want the different answer, then you can come here. I will talk about parts work, in a week or so, but at the same time, the researched protocol is what we're going to explore a little bit more, and kind of always hold up here. Um, I'm so trying to make that there's nothing wrong with integration. There's nothing wrong with somaticism, somatic, aspects and bringing somatic aspects into it. Nothing wrong with any of it. I'm just trying to, make sure that EMDR stays EMDR. That's all, right? We can integrate all these things into it, but when we integrate it at some point, it's drift, and that's my thing is trying to avoid drift as much as possible and try to keep EMDR where it is instead of, making it so that people don't know what they're getting when they come here. That's the biggest issue. When people sign up for EMDR, when people say, "Hey, I want EMDR," and they get this bait and switch thing where they come in and now you're getting IFS informed EMDR. I'm like, well, is that EMDR? Is that what I'm signing up for? Is that what I'm researching? Eh, there's not as much research on that. But yeah, we're going to do it because I think it works better or something, right? Same thing with other aspects. When you start shoving other aspects into something, and then when people are coming to you for one thing, and then you're like, hey, we're going to do this other thing, right? Not researched, mind you, not as researched if we're going to say it's researched, but we're going to do this other thing. So, um, yeah, so let's hold that balance. Integrations are good. Parts work is fantastic. IFS is fantastic, in its own right. All that is good. What we're worried about is drift when we talk about. Let's look at the research protocol versus the standard protocol. Awesome sauce. Okay, so we are going to meet you tomorrow at 9:30, and if anything comes up, feel free and reach out. Let me know what your questions are. If anything else comes up, concerns, thoughts, etc. And again, I'm still thinking about, I should still be doing this when I'm in California. Um, it'll be a different time zone, but I'll still be 9:30 here, right? So I'm still doing the 9:30 broadcast here. All right, everybody. Thank you. This has been Doc V at EMDR News. And until next time, stay cool.